sheds with tracks for skis, so they're looking real precise. Drones are high, the vibe's not right, they're circling in the air. Low steps up, but what's that sight? Boom, now it's everywhere. You will get a fiery, smoky feeling when the shrapnel starts revealing. Explosions bright, oh what a sight. The loaf's turned into kindling tonight. Loafing around the Christmas tree with fences for extra flair. Its aluminum coat won't save the spree, it's a rolling Christmas dare. FPVs bring hugs from the sky with the soft and cozy boom. One loaf down, the tree looks fine, but there's another entering soon. You will get a fiery, smoky feeling when the fireworks start gleaming. Tank turrets fly, they reach the sky. Loafs can't seem to say goodbye. Oh, the snow is red tonight. From loafs that took their chance with zero armor and bad design, they led a deadly dance. Loafing around the Christmas tree, there are no gifts, just burning steel. Ukraine's drones are setting them free from a war they'll never heal. So if you're loafing near that tree, expect some sparks for all to see. Welcome to the perpetual show. Where the loaves go, we've got flow. Oh yeah. Driving through the fields of green, oh so bright. With a loaf by your side, everything feels right. Loafing through the fields, feeling so alive. In our boxy Russian van, we're taking our stride. Past the fallen soldiers, a bittersweet sight. But we're cruising on this road tonight. Bouncing to the rhythm, calypso in our soul. The loaf's engine purring as our story unfolds. We're singing and we're dancing, the sun shining above. The loaf takes us places where we find love. Through the fields, feeling so alive. In our boxy Russian van, we're taking our stride. Past the fallen soldiers, a bittersweet sight. But we're cruising on this road tonight. Bouncing to the rhythm, calypso in our soul. The love's engine purring as our story unfolds. We're singing and we're dancing, sun shining above. The loaf takes us places where we find love.
Hello and welcome to Tochnyi Weekly, the show that gets behind the headlines to discuss the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Hope you guys enjoyed a little foray into holiday music there. We were just feeling a bit festive over at the basement and at Tochnyi, and yeah, I think Gick threw some stuff together, so we thought it was amusing. So this week we have a pretty light show for you. You know, as I said, it's the holidays. Most of our staff is busy doing holiday things as they do and as they should. But you know, we wanted to have at least I'll put it this way: the stuff, nothing stopped in terms of the war. So we wanted to make sure to cover at least on a basic level. So for sure, this week I will be presenting the news as I always do. I accidentally cut a couple things, so I'll jump in and do a couple extra bits as well. And then after that, we'll have a report from Germany to Ukraine, as we always do. And then we'll have a Q&A section. So we're pretty open for Q&A, I would say, today, if you guys are interested in asking any questions. Hopefully, you guys saw. I think it was yesterday. It's kind of all a blur because European time and American time. But recently, within the last 2 days, Ben, our contributor Ben, is economist Ben, we sometimes call him because there's a couple Bens. Um, Made a really great stream with a bunch of really great contributors and economists about the current state of the Russian economy, what's going on there. I think it's really fantastic. It's uh, one of our finer interview panel shows. I hope we can do more of those, and I think Ben did a really good job moderating. It's a topic that I really wish would get covered more in general, and I would hope that we can cover more. So it's really great to see a really in-depth discussion from experts on what's going on with the Russian economy, because it is a big mess, but I think there's a lot of oversimplifications or misconceptions that happen in the mainstream reporting about it. I do my best to give you guys like substantial information when I can, but I think there's nothing better than hearing it from actual economists for sure. Anyway, check that out. Check out the interview that Ben did with the panel that he had a couple days ago on our YouTube channel. Please do subscribe so that you're notified when Ben randomly decides to have a panel show the day before. Yeah, because we'll do our best to promote stuff, but sometimes we have guests or things where it doesn't work for the Sunday broadcast, or they want to do something really quick, and so to subscribe on YouTube, and also to follow us on Twitter or Blue Sky are the two main social media forums we're active on. That will help you guys stay notified. Also, check out our website at Tochnyi.info. I feel like I'm dragging out the intro a little bit this week, so I'll go ahead and now jump right into the news. These are the main headlines as of December 29th, 2024. On Wednesday morning, a drone crash occurred in the Russian Republic of Ingushetia, and reports of a UAV attack surfaced in Grozny, the capital of Chechnya. According to Mahmoud Ali Kalimatov, the head of Ingushetia, the drone went down in the city of Maglobek. Social media users shared videos showing a drone flying over Maglobek earlier in the day, followed by footage depicting the wreckage of the aircraft lying in a field. Meanwhile, additional reports from the Chechen resistance group NISO indicated a separate drone assault on facilities used by Russian security forces in Chechnya. Preliminary accounts suggest multiple explosions, with reports of 4 to 5 blasts in the vicinity of the SWAT 2nd Regiment's base. Hazmat Kadyrov, the secretary of the Security Council and nephew of Chechnya's leader, acknowledged the drone incident in the region and emphasized that the situation is being addressed, quote, effectively. Ukrainian long-range drones recently targeted an ammunition depot at the Kadamovsky military training ground in Russia's Rostov Oblast, according to a source from Ukraine Security Service. The facility is located near Novocherkassk and is one of Russia's largest training grounds. The source claimed that the depot was completely destroyed by drones operated by the SBU. The destroyed depot was allegedly a key supply point for Russian forces operating in the Kramatorsk area of Donetsk Oblast. The source indicated that its destruction has created a major logistical challenge for Russian troops, impacting their ability to conduct military operations in the area. However, the claims are unverified by independent open sources. Ukrainian Defense Forces targeted the command posts of Russia's 810th Guards Naval Infantry Brigade in the village of Lgov, located in Russia's Kursk Oblast. The Center for Strategic Communications of the Ukrainian Armed Forces reported the incident on Facebook and stated that the command post had been operating from an abandoned civilian building. According to Stratcom, the attack aligns with broader efforts to disrupt the Russian military's capacity to coordinate operations against Ukraine in the area. Andrei Kovalenko, who leads the Center for Countering Disinformation, stated that the strike resulted in casualties among Russian officers. Reports from Russian Telegram channels citing the acting governor of Kursk Oblast also confirmed casualties linked to the attack in Lgov. Ukrainian volunteer engineers are nearing completion on a new cruise missile project named Trembita, capable of reaching Moscow, according to The Economist. The missile is in its final phase of testing, with plans for mass production expected to begin shortly thereafter. The basic Trembita model achieves a speed of 400 km per hour and has a range of 200 km, while a more advanced version with extended range capabilities is under development. Engineers have remarkably progressed from concept to near production readiness within just 18 months, a notably short timeline for missile development, which typically spans several years. It is equipped with a modernized pulse jet engine, and it is considered to emphasize affordability and versatility. Each missile is armed with a warhead of about 20 to 30 kilograms and costs approximately $15,000, while decoy versions are significantly cheaper at around $3,000. These cost-effective designs make the Trembita a practical solution for overwhelming enemy air defenses. A fire described as devastating by Ukrainian military intelligence erupted at a warehouse storing Shahed drone components in the Alabuga Special Economic Zone located in Russia's Tatarstan region. The incident was reported on December 23rd and destroyed drone parts valued at $16 million. The warehouse housed 65 drone fuselages along with engines, navigation systems, and thermal imaging cameras intended for the assembly of around 400 Shahed-type drones, according to HUR. The Alabuga zone is home to the Yelabuga Drone Factory, a facility established in July 2023 to manufacture Shahed drones and Albatross reconnaissance drones for the Russian military. Situated around 1,300 kilometers from the Russia-Ukraine border, the factory has played a critical role in producing drones regularly used by Russia in attacks against Ukrainian cities and infrastructure. HUR did not claim responsibility for the fire, but referred to it as a, quote, mysterious and devastating fire in its statement. Local authorities in Tatarstan did not report any fire in the zone on the night of December 23rd. This comes days after drones struck Kazan, Tatarstan's regional capital, on December 21st, damaging several buildings. This is not the first time the Yelabuga facility has been targeted. Ukrainian drones reportedly struck the site in April. The Ukrainian Air Force targeted a facility in Kamensk-Shakhtinsky in Rostov Oblast, responsible for producing solid propellant for ballistic missiles, according to a report by Ukraine Center for Strategic Communications on December 26th. The missiles have reportedly been used in attacks on civilian infrastructure in Ukraine, including hospitals, residential areas, and power facilities. Stratcom characterized the strike as part of a coordinated effort to diminish the Russian military's capacity to conduct such operations against Ukrainian civilians. The attack follows a series of Ukrainian strikes in Rostov Oblast aimed at disrupting Russia's military supply chains. On December 25th, long-range Ukrainian drones reportedly destroyed an ammunition depot at the Katimovsky military training ground, according to a source from the Ukraine Security Service. A day earlier, drones targeted the military base in Milorovo, as stated by the local acting governor. There is currently no open-source information available about this strike. On December 26th, Ukraine struck a facility in Oryol Oblast used for storing and repairing Russian Shahed drones, resulting in the deaths of 2 Russian military personnel and injuries to 7 others. The strike was confirmed by Ukraine's general staff and involved 3 Storm Shadow missiles hitting the site between the villages of Symbulova and Rudnevo in the Bolkhov district. The military operation reportedly targeted reinforced concrete shelters housing Shahed drones and their maintenance facilities. According to the Ukrainian General Staff, the attack significantly disrupted Russia's capacity to launch airstrikes on Ukrainian civilian infrastructure using the drones. Russia's Astra news agency reported on the strike, which occurred around 1540 local time, although no official Russian sources such as the Defense Ministry have commented on the incident. Local authorities acknowledged a missile threat but did not release details about damage, and injured personnel, according to Astra, were transported to the Central District Hospital. Up next, we have economy news. The United States is preparing to unveil a substantial military aid package for Ukraine valued at $1.25 billion. This support is aimed at bolstering Ukraine's defenses and is expected to include a variety of ammunition, artillery shells, and interceptors for advanced air defense systems. The package reportedly contains munitions for the NASAMS and Hawk air defense systems, as well as Stinger missiles and artillery rounds for 155 and 105 mm caliber. The announcement is expected to be officially made on Monday, December 30th, and is part of the Biden administration's broader effort to expedite assistance to Kyiv before the administration concludes its term on January 20th. The first unit of the Ukrainian Legion, established in Poland, has departed for Ukraine, according to Vasyl Bodnar, Ukraine's ambassador to Poland. He noted that while the initial group of volunteer fighters would continue their training on Ukrainian soil, the process is progressing steadily. The next wave of volunteers will be expected to formalize their enlistment contracts with the Ukrainian Armed Forces on January 10th and will undergo training at a facility in Poland. Budnar stated that the initiative represents a notable achievement, despite attempts by some politicians and Russian propaganda to frame it negatively. Efforts are underway to promote awareness of the program not only across European Union member states, but also potentially in other regions. The ambassador emphasized the entirely voluntary nature of the unit, with participation driven by individual commitment rather than external pressure. While specific numbers of volunteers in the initial deployment were not disclosed, earlier reports indicated that the Ukrainian Legion in Poland had received around 500 applications from individuals in 30 different countries as of early November. Ukraine has secured a $485 million financial aid package from the United States and World Bank as part of the Peace in Ukraine project, according to a statement by Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal. The funding includes $465 million contributed by the U.S. via USAID and an additional $20 million provided by the World Bank. The funds are designated to cover social and humanitarian expenditures within Ukraine's state budget, addressing critical needs amid ongoing challenges. Shmyhal expressed gratitude to the United States, USAID, and the World Bank for their continued support of the Ukrainian people. The U.S. Department of Commerce's Bureau of Industry has levied a $3.3 million civil penalty against Integra Technologies Incorporated, a California-based company, for violating export controls by shipping transistors and related components to Russia. These products, which have potential applications in avionics and radar systems, are critical to Russia's military capabilities. The exported items were classified as common high-priority list products, components specifically sought by Russia for its defense and industrial base and weapon programs involved in the conflict in Ukraine. Although Integra uses intermediaries, it was aware that the end users were in Russia, as its distribution agreements required disclosure of the final user's name and country. Integra voluntarily disclosed its violations and cooperated with the investigation, leading to a reduced penalty of the $3.3 million fine. Around half the fine has been suspended due to the company's limited financial capacity. Integra must pay the remaining $1.8 million by September 2027, and if the company breaches the settlement agreement, it will be required to pay the full amount of the fine immediately. The BIS attributed violations to deficiencies in Integra's export compliance program, which failed to track updates to Export Administration regulations. As a result, the company did not recognize that the products required a license for export to Russia after February 2023. Integra maintained that it believed the components were intended solely for civilian applications. Following the discovery of the violations in October, the company ceased all shipments to Russian users and filed a voluntary disclosure with BIS. Ukraine has imported liquefied natural gas from the United States for the first time, utilizing a terminal in Greece. The development will further assist Ukraine and Europe with replacing natural gas on the European market. And finally, this week we have international relations. Ukraine has initiated contact with the new Syrian leadership, marking a potential shift in relations between the two nations. According to a spokesperson for Ukraine's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the outreach has included discussions at the ministerial level. Ukraine severed diplomatic ties with Syria in June 2022 after the Assad government recognized the independence of Russian-occupied territories in Donbass. In response, Ukraine also imposed a trade embargo on Syria. Ukraine emphasized that any restoration of diplomatic relations would depend on Syria reversing its stance on Ukraine's territorial integrity. Kyiv expressed its readiness to reestablish ties if the new Syrian leadership demonstrates a commitment to respecting Ukraine's sovereignty. Reports suggest that Ukrainian intelligence operatives provided material support, including drones, to Syrian opposition forces during their advance. The assistance was reportedly part of Ukraine's broader strategy to counter Russia and its allies in the region, as Syria under Assad had been a close partner of Moscow. President Zelensky also announced on December 27th that Ukraine had sent 500 tons of wheat flour to Syria as humanitarian aid following the fall of Bashar al-Assad's regime. The assistance is part of Ukraine's Grain from Ukraine program in collaboration with the World Food Program. The flour will be distributed to 33,000 Syrian families, benefiting approximately 167,000 people over the coming weeks. Pope Francis has agreed to visit Ukraine, although the date of the visit has not yet been set, according to His Beatitude Sviatoslav, the head of the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church. In an interview with Radio Liberty, Sviatoslav confirmed that the invitation was extended and accepted, but specifics around the timing remain uncertain. Sviatoslav noted that Pope Francis has a tendency to announce visits with short notice, sometimes just a month in advance. He expressed hope that the upcoming year might not only bring a papal visit, but also peace in Ukraine. The development follows an earlier meeting in December between Metropolitan Epiphanius, head of the Orthodox Church of Ukraine, and Pope Francis at the Vatican. Finnish authorities have detained the Eagle S, an oil tanker suspected of damaging the Estlink 2 submarine power cable, a critical connection between Finland and Estonia. The Finnish border guard intercepted the tanker in Finnish waters, where it is now under police control. The incident occurred in the Gulf of Finland, where the Eagle S was transporting oil from Russia to Egypt. Investigators suspect the ship deliberately severed the power cable along with 4 communication cables while passing through the area. Evidence suggests that the ship's anchor may have caused the damage, as one of its anchors was found severed and showing signs of damage. The Director General of the Finnish police stated that there is substantial reason to believe the vessel was responsible for disrupting the power grid and potentially damaging additional infrastructure. Data from Marine Traffic, a ship tracking service, indicates that the Eagle S slowed down near the location of the cables, which raises further suspicion. The vessel is registered in the Cook Islands and is believed to be part of Russia's Shadow Fleet, a group of older, poorly maintained ships that it uses to bypass international sanctions on oil exports. And finally, the biggest piece of news of the week. Russian air defenses mistakenly downed an Azerbaijan Airlines plane on December 25th near Grozny, Russia, killing 38 people, according to preliminary findings from Azerbaijan's investigation into the crash. The plane, which was traveling from Baku to Grozny before diverting to Kazakhstan, reportedly encountered GPS jamming and interference from electronic warfare systems before being struck by a Russian Pantsir S air defense system, sources familiar with the investigation told Reuters. Investigators from Azerbaijan, corroborated by 3 additional sources and an alert issued by aviation security firm Osprey Flight Solutions, suggest that the wreckage and flight data indicated the aircraft was hit by anti-aircraft fire. The firm also noted GPS disruptions during the plane's flight over southwestern Russia, a region where Russian air defenses are frequently active due to ongoing Ukrainian drone strikes. While Azerbaijan has not accused Russia of intentional actions, it expects Moscow to acknowledge responsibility for the downing. A U.S. official and Azerbaijani minister both attributed the crash to an external weapon, lending further weight to the claim of accidental targeting by Russian defense forces. On December 30th, Russian President Vladimir Putin formally apologized to Azerbaijan's president for what he described as a, quote, tragic incident. The Kremlin acknowledged that air defense systems had been active near Grozny during the time of the crash in response to a Ukrainian drone strike, but stopped short of confirming that one of these systems had struck the aircraft. The crash had 38 fatalities and 29 survivors. And that's it for the news this week. We will now move to the next segment. Not so fast, other Joe. Real quick, I wanted to add 2 things. I feel a bit remiss not to add. The first is that Russia had 2 oil tankers from their Shadow Fleet in the Black Sea during a storm basically got damaged and leaked a bunch of oil into the Black Sea. Russia has declared a state of emergency. The federal government has, and they've sort of mobilized as many people as they can to go clean up the oil spill. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's a pretty big story. And then the other one is that there are 2 airfields. There's one in Crimea. I can't find the other one at the moment. But basically, the Russians are hardening Saki airfield in Crimea. It appears that they're trying to protect themselves from Ukrainian missile strikes or maybe drone strikes. So, yeah, I don't know. It seems like Russia is making more efforts to protect airfields from Ukrainian strikes. And I will say, it seems to me like every week there's at least one Ukrainian strike on an airfield. So it sort of makes sense that they would need to start trying to defend those better, I guess. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much it for the news this week. I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Mr. German Aid to Ukraine.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Joseph. You're the best. Hello, guys. As always, I will now present this week's most important news from Germany regarding Ukraine in a short segment. And we're actually starting with Monday and the latest deliveries of military assistance by Germany to Ukraine. Let me find the video. Here it is. Okay. Over the past 5 weeks, Germany delivered the following equipment to Ukraine, and I just want to point out I already summarized the list, so it's actually short of what it's summarized. You know what summarizing is. Germany has delivered one IRIS-T SLM-5 unit along with 2 additional IRIS-T SLS launchers, 12 kinetic defense vehicles, which are simply explained an IMV with an integrated camera, sensors, and a minigun mounted on a remote-controlled weapon station, 2 Patriot launchers, 2 Cheetah Sparks, so the Dutch version of the Gepard, 14 Hornet XR UAVs, 24 RQ-35 Hydron UAVs, 30 Vector UAVs, 1 Panzerwitze 2000 or Panzerwitze 2000, 15 Leopard 1i5 main battle tanks, 13 FFG MRAPs, 12 Mercedes-Benz Zetros trucks, and 8 additional ones in the tankers version for water and fuel. 1 border protection vehicle, 7 Caracal air assault vehicles, nearly 4,600 DM-22 anti-tank mines, 2 TRML-4D air surveillance radars. This is a radar which is integrated in the IRIS-T SLM-5 unit or systems, and we delivered 2 additional ones. Material for explosive ordnance disposal, 5 mobile remote-controlled and protected demining devices, 800 firearms of different kinds, from assault rifles over machine guns to precision rifles, most of that for Ukrainian special forces, 120 Heckler & Koch GMGs, so the big grenade launchers, ammunition for IRIS-T SLM, Sidewinder missiles, around 65,000 rounds of different kinds of ammunition for the Gepard and Cheetah Sparks, 52,155 shells, 15,120 mortar shells, ammunition for both the Leopard 1 and Leopard 2 main battle tanks, 20,000 rounds of 40mm ammunition for the automatic grenade launchers, at least 4.3 million rounds of ammunition for basic firearms, 1 million trauma bandages. How do I say that, Joseph? I've never thought about that. How do I say that? Bandages? Bandages?
Bandages.
Bandage. Damn. Yeah, bandages. Yeah, of course. 43,000 tourniquets, 5 AMPS self-protection systems for helicopters, emergency power generators, 50 tents, and finally 45 underwater scooters. And before someone asks, I think that's for underwater diving for Ukrainian special forces. Germany also pledged to deliver another 4 kinetic defense vehicles, 2 Patriot launchers, and 20 Marder 1A3 IFVs in the future. Very long and very great list. And I hope nobody went to sleep after that long list. Just one more quick update thanks to the latest weapon deliveries update. Thanks to the update or to the deliveries of 52,155 shells to Ukraine in December, we finally have a total number for the whole year, and I'm really satisfied, to be honest, with that number. In 2024, Germany did finance the delivery of more than 320,155 shells to Ukraine, with, of course, the biggest contribution coming from the SEC ammunition initiative, where Germany financed a total of 180,155 high explosive shells. And, to be honest, 300,000 or 320,155 shells in a single year by Germany alone is a very substantial amount. So I'm happy. I'm happy for once. At least. And just to point out, that graphic you see is from the beginning of the deliveries of 145 shells by Germany. So from, I believe, July 2022, sorry. And it's made by Chris, who's an awesome contributor to a lot of Tochnyi guys here, and also on a regular basis helps me out with my graphics. And that's all I had for this week. Back to you, Joseph.
Thank you, sir. So I think at this point we can pretty much open it up to Q&A. So since we're Erlend, we don't have anything else, right?
I mean, Gao, you mentioned something before the stream. What was it again?
It depends. Was it the secret Scholz talk or was it something else?
So it's the German politics stuff, and I know that you're German aid to Ukraine, but you're also the only German here, and I think people want to know about what's going to happen. Is it in March or April? And also that apparently Merz said something interesting.
So 1 or 2 weeks ago, so there were a lot of people like spreading fake news that the German defense minister first of all said that we need Russian approval for peacekeeping troops in Germany, which is of course not what he said, and at least not in the context. There was a lot of context missing, and I debunked it online on my account. And funny enough, Friedrich Merz, which is the CDU chancellor candidate, which is at the moment at least very likely to win the upcoming elections at the end of February, said basically more or less the same, just in a different kind, which is very unusual, since normally the parties, especially during election times, are like trying to have different standpoints. But apparently he has like a very similar standpoint to Pistorius, which is defense minister of the SPD, so the opposing party, basically. And the among others, the Kyiv Independent basically said that he insisted, or he says we need approval from Russia for peacekeeping troops, which is of course not right. Like he didn't say that at all, despite so many people claiming it. The only thing he said is that he wishes he would have Russian approval for this. And I think that simply comes down to the fact that, it's just a lot more easier to get things like this done in Ukraine. It creates a lot of less problems when Russia is okay, based on, let's say there's a peace contract, right? And in this peace contract, where both Ukraine and Russia have to sign it, is in it that there will be a buffer zone with peacekeeping troops. Just one example, right? And that's the only thing he said, or that's the context he's saying. It's good when we have Russian approval, and I just seem to realize that a lot of people, including the big media channels, are completely leaving out this context, and I don't think it's anything bad at all. Don't hang me, please, but I think he's not wrong with saying that it's better to have Russian approval for peacekeeping troops when they sign it in their in the contract, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah, the thing is that he should never say this publicly, and he also should never say this to Ukraine or to any of the allies. But inside the government, having in private talks, sure, I don't care. But this is a very big violation of all the principles that the West normally abides to, like the right for Ukraine to decide itself what is happening on their territory, and that a German politician or even a minister or possible new minister or counselor is basically taking away Ukraine's agency over what happens in Ukraine is so outrageous that it makes me want to destroy my computer screen when I'm thinking about it right now, because it is completely playing into the Russian propaganda and Russian doctrine, which is that Ukraine isn't a country, and Russian influence and dominance over Ukraine should be accepted by the West. So those people that say these things should go fuck themselves. It makes me so fucking angry. I'm so pissed when I hear it. And it's nothing against Germany as a country or anything like this. It's a sign that Russian propaganda and influence has changed their way of understanding how Ukrainian sovereignty and any country's sovereignty should be talked about in public and also treated in diplomacy. If Germany says this to Ukraine, I'm almost certain that they will reply that what happens in Ukrainian territory is our decision. Germany should not interfere with this through diplomatic means or political means. And yeah, thank you, Kellen, from chat. Ukraine and Ukrainians have full agency over their territory whatsoever. I totally agree that in a practical sense, if there is a ceasefire and a treaty of a ceasefire, because a ceasefire can happen in many ways. It can happen basically by an understanding that isn't written or handshaken or anything, but basically similar to what happened with the Turkey treaty of the Ukraine corridor. But then in the end, that collapsed, and Ukraine just made sure that it still happens, right? But that there was no agreement between Ukraine and Russia officially. But it happened through diplomatic means. I totally understand and agree that practically Ukraine will have to acknowledge that if there is a ceasefire, Russia might have some certain demands to not Ukraine, but to other countries about what we do with that ceasefire for them to agree with that. If the ceasefire is going to be negotiated by Western countries like the US or, I don't know, Germany, whatever, right? But this should never be talked about in public and never through diplomatic channels in the way that they phrased it. And that's what I have to say about it. The reason why I wanted you to say it is so that I could rage about this, because I think it is being completely missed in the discussion and the discourse publicly. So rant over from me.
Yeah, it's
Fell right into his
it's
trap.
fine. I just want to point out that I'm not like contradicting anything you say right now. I just want to point out, it's always a little bit different during election times. It's, of course, I'm not saying you're wrong, and Germany should like not how you say get involved in all that kind of stuff before it's actually happening, at least not publicly. And I agree. Thing is, it's election times. They make a lot of interviews. They get a lot of ask about this stuff, and somehow they feel the need, or they reply because they want to attract the voters, right, of different parties or of different opinions and views. So I wouldn't say that's normally how it's done. I would say it's more influenced by the fact that we are very, very short before elections.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't talk about that from their own. They only talk about it after being asked. And I think they only talk about it because they can attract voters due to their statements. I mean, it's the same thing where, for example, just one really stupid example, Scholz for many months and weeks, and a lot of Germans here probably know that, but everyone else not. For weeks and even months, Scholz didn't even take the name Taurus into his mouth anymore. He was only saying, the one weapon system, which one. So basically, like Harry Potter with Voldemort, just
Like
with
you do.
Taurus. And yeah, but I do it from different standpoint, right? I'm not trying to talk about it and not trying to mention it because I'm tired of people telling me we need to deliver if I am not knowing that. I'm not against the Taurus delivery, and it feels to me that everyone is like crying under my shenets about Scholz and all that kind of stuff. I'm not voting for Scholz. I'm not against the Taurus delivery. Why you keep repeating that?
Why
to me?
won't you let Schultz send Taurus
Yeah.
to Ukraine?
So but that's what he did, right? Like for weeks and months, he didn't even use the name, and also his spokesperson didn't even use the name. Really said to other politicians and to reporters, which weapon system we are talking about. He didn't even say Taurus. And now during election, when every time he's on TV or in interviews, he brings up Taurus by himself. and uses it to attract voters, saying, I'm a very chill chancellor, basically, and not trying to get us involved into war. And it's the same with Merz and others when they're talking about peacekeeping troops. They don't do this on their own. They're doing this basically when asked to attract voters.
Can I ask
Sorry.
you this, like, sort of sincerely? Like, do you feel like there is a voter in Germany that's like, man, Schultz, they're reading it the way Schultz thinks, where it's like he's keeping us out of war? Like, do you hear that, like, from people that are like, oh yeah, like he's doing his best to manage it, and like this Taurus thing is like his chess move to like keep us out of the war?
Well, not from my personal, from the people around me, to be honest. I think I would have to have a long discussion with family members and friends when they once hear that. But of
Yeah.
course, a lot of people, I mean, it's everywhere, right? Like where you have very, very left people, very, very right people, and everything in the middle with all kinds of opinions. And of course, there are people who think that Scholz is a great guy and think that Scholz actually does the right thing. The thing is, when you look at the polling results right now, not from his party, because his party is still getting like 16-17% around that, right? But Scholz percentage itself, like how many people are satisfied with his work. I mean, Taurus, to be honest, it's like from an outside level, a very important topic. Because it says a lot about Scholz, the way he thinks. But in Germany, it's they make this a big topic, but it really isn't. There are other things which are far more important. And Scholz
Okay.
personal.
So if I understand you correctly, just to clarify, you're saying it's a big deal for the press and to some extent for Schultz personally, but not for like the German voter. Do I understand you correctly?
Yeah, there are really more important things going on here in Germany than if we deliver
Yeah, makes sense.
Taurus or not. Yeah. And just to end this, and the satisfaction votes, points, shares, you know what I mean, with Scholz itself are way below that of his like compared to Habeck, compared to Merz, and of course compared to Pistorius, which a lot of SPD voters and voters in general would have preferred over Scholz a lot. I mean, don't have to forget Pistorius is like still the most loved politician here in Germany, or the most influential, the most important. Not important, but you know what I mean, right? Yeah. I hope my this long statement made any sense to you.
Yeah, I think so. It's good. Like, I didn't even really know there was kind of a political shakeup happening in Germany right now. So it's interesting for me to learn about this. It sounds like, I don't know, that's a lot of the dynamics in a lot of the democracies right now, right? Where it's pretty clear that this election in Germany will determine like Germany's strategic alignment for, I don't want to say decades, but like, there's clearly this is a pivotal moment in German foreign policy, right? But as you said, I think the concerns will be driven by much more, I don't want to say mundane things, but like things much closer to people's homes. And I don't know. I think we're seeing that situation play out in a lot of different countries that are democracies right now. So it'll be interesting to see how the new governments approach the issue of Russia moving forward while trying to balance that concern, I guess, is the most constructive way I could put it.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. Yeah. It's just a short question. Should we put Jonathan up in the panel, or?
Yeah.
That makes me wanna try out this
Hey.
because we agreed with that about that. Hi, Jonathan.
Good evening, everybody. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, happy New Year to all of you. It's great to be back. Great to see you all.
It's good to hear your voice again, Jonathan. What was I supposed to say? Yeah. Also, about Germany again. After the elections.
I love how he hates to talk about Germany.
after the elections go. Is it realistic that Ukraine will receive Storm Shadow?
Yeah, I believe so. But to be honest, that's a question for someone else.
He answered your question. He technically answered it.
Taurus, and then when would the most likely earliest delivery happen? And I think that's the question that everyone wants to ask, even if it's most likely a lot more insignificant than what those people actually believe it's going to be.
So first, yes, I'm very, very sure there will be a Taurus delivery. Simply because Merz talked about it for months and months and months and months and months and demanded a delivery and all that kind of stuff. And even recently said when he became chancellor, he would at least start training Ukrainian troops on the weapon system in case Ukraine really still wants a delivery, which means, of course, when he trains it and puts the integration to the aircraft forward, he will deliver it in the end, right? Because Ukraine certainly won't say, no, we don't want Taurus. Now that would be, yeah. Thanks, by the way, for the for this chat official go statement. Ukraine will receive Taurus. Yeah, thanks. They will put on 50 different Twitter accounts all saying I'm affiliated to the government. Now, to answer the other questions, so first of all, yes, there will be a delivery. Then training, we have to first, of course, train the troops and then integrate the cruise missile into an aircraft, right? This takes time. If they do both simultaneously, I think when I remember the statement by the CEO of MBDA Germany, it needs about 4 to 5 months to fulfill everything. So we have a new government, or we have elections at the end of February. So let's say everything starts in March, and then you add like 4 to 5 months on top of it, and then you basically know when is the first delivery possible. So that's Q3 2025. When they're delaying everything a bit, it's the end of 2025 when we see the first Taurus in Ukraine. I don't think there will be any like very, very substantial amounts, maybe up to 50 or so. And maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I hope there will be more, but I don't think so. And yeah, I think that was everything you asked, right?
Yeah, but Marino is asking what is Habeck's stance on Taurus?
Oh, he will deliver. Like he, although Habeck is of course still in the current government, Habeck is in favor of delivering Taurus to Ukraine, the same as other people were, like the ex-finance minister of finance, for example, Lindner. He said in 2023 he would deliver Taurus. Our foreign minister, Annalena Baerbock, she multiple times stated on German TV that Ukraine needs Taurus and they need more cruise missiles. Yeah, so he would definitely, and I believe 2-3 weeks ago or so, he said, so for your explanation, weapon exports in Germany are regulated by like a council, you can basically say, and a lot of ministers, or the ministers, including Scholz, are part of this council, and that's why Scholz can block it. And because he has, in the end, the final say. But Habeck said on television, if I recall correctly, that he voted in favor of the delivery to Ukraine in 2024, and maybe in 2023. I don't know, to be honest. But yeah, he would also deliver, same as Mats. 100% sure.
Well, so in any possible outcome, it's not likely that any of the parties in government are going to be against delivery. That's
the SPD, of course. I mean, there is the possibility, could be low, or is low, of course, but there might be the possibility that the things are still changing here in Germany, and that Scholz wins again. And when Scholz wins again, it's basically the same as the last years. So yeah, but for the more likely outcome that the CDU wins, yes, there will be delivery. Yes.
okay. So to stay on the GAU topics, so German aid topics.
Yeah.
And thank you, by the way, so much for clarifying those two political topics. I think that a lot of people are asking what's going to be, what's the next Germany? So thanks. So Kellen asks, did the Patriot launchers come with radars, or will they be supplementing the current batteries? And then what is the status of the 400 MRAPs pledged earlier?
So both for me, I guess. So the Patriot launchers are just launchers without additional radars. They didn't say like how they will be used, but I purely assume that they will be, of course, integrated into the existing batteries, maybe as spare ones for launchers which needs maintenance or were damaged during combat or so. But yeah, there are no further radar deliveries. And the second, the 400 MREPs pledged, we delivered 30 additional ones in December. So I believe we are now at 103 of the 400 MREPs pledged. Yeah, I think that's the current status.
Okay. And then Marino asks, Germany is sending Eagles to Ukraine. Aren't they partially produced in Switzerland?
No, I don't know what's based on that or where you got that. There was the incident that an ex-CEO of a German private company who bought up a lot of armored vehicles and tanks and all that kind of stuff. They sent, I believe it was 11 Movak Eagle 1s to Ukraine in 2020. I believe it was early 2023. I'm not sure anymore. And although he got approval from, or he got not the authorization, the German authorities said it's completely demilitarized vehicles. So he removed all armor and all that kind of stuff, right? Were basically just bigger vehicles, And he got heavily fined by Swiss authorities. He was lifetime banned on importing and exporting Swiss-made military equipment. And yeah, so there is no deliveries of Eagles to Ukraine planned. Never heard of that beside that one instance from private individual. If that is based on what I said earlier about the IMVs, the kinetic defense vehicles, this is not based on an Eagle. That's based on a different vehicle, on a different IMV. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then, as a consequence of your talk earlier, you got another question about Taurus. Has there been any news on the procurement of new Taurus? My last update was Pistorius asked for money and didn't get the money.
Yeah, so if I recall correctly, Germany pledged additional capabilities to NATO. I believe it was like 1,000 to 1,200 Taurus. We have currently about 600. So you would have to purchase more. But the only update I think we got so far is that recently the Defense Committee and the Budget Committee of the German Bundestag approved the general maintenance and overhaul of the already existing ones, because I'm not recalling the full number, but I guess it was like 150 to 200 towers of the 600 were really operational. The other needs maintenance, overhaul, that kind of stuff. So they're bringing now all the others to the we can actually use them without any issues status right now. I think that's the only thing. I can look it up again during other questions, but I don't think there were any procurements so far.
Listen, I know that you're in charge of this, so can I just tell you, sending the old ones to Ukraine and just making new Tauruses, I'm not saying it's cheaper, but like you're gonna spend a lot of money refurbishing them. And let's be real, like German not operational condition is Ukrainian like good to go. Like I'm pretty sure they'll take one look at those right now. So I feel like that's this case for a lot of these things. I'm not saying just for tourists. Like in the US, right? We had a bunch of old ATACMs sitting around. Like it's literally going to cost us money to like refurbish or dispose them. We should just send them to Ukraine and build new like state of the art ones. These are weapons we're talking about. You want the best ones, right? Like duh.
Yeah, I see your point. I will forward it to my supervisor, who will bring it directly to Scholz.
That's all we ask on the internet
Yeah.
when we randomly approach you and ask you to change German policy towards Ukraine, sir.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree with you. I'm honestly not really sure like what condition these missiles are actually in. I had a little chat about it like half a year ago or so with Fabian Hoffmann, who, if I recall correctly, said, most of the missiles just need the basic okay from the manufacturer. They're good to go, and then they're operable again. I don't know. It would probably be a good topic to talk to Fabian again about it. Yeah, but I'm not sure if we really want to talk about it in a own segment. But yeah, in theory, you're not wrong. No?
Thank you. No, but I cut a story this week. The French sent an official military delegation to Ukraine. It's like a bunch of generals, I think. So I don't know, just kind of funny to me that like, well, I would say both the U.S. and Germany to a certain degree are talking about hypothetical post-war situations where there's a treaty that stipulates they can be in Ukraine. The French are sort of doing their best to be like, we're on this side of the line. Now we're on this side of the line. What are you going to do? Now we're back over here. Like they're just messing around.
I mean, what's
just the very different attitudes about this.
I mean, what's the purpose of these of the French delegation? Because unless
I assume the Ukrainians got together the best Caesar strikes and the best scalp strikes, and they're watching compilation vids right now and high five.
Okay,
that would be my guess.
Because there were German delegations in full military clothing in Kyiv, right? Like Freuding and Breuer and all that, all the soldiers. There were like a lot of soldiers in German soldiers in uniform in Kyiv before, so it's
Yeah, the truth is I couldn't find much about what was going on or like why they were sent or anything.
Which is good.
Maybe in the French press. Yeah.
Just want to note the technicality that it's quite important to separate soldier and officer in this specific situation. I mean and say full-heartedly that every officer is also a soldier, but when you are actually a general or colonel and above, you have a political delegate. Like you can have a diplomatic passport, essentially.
Yeah. They're diplomats.
So when they are in Germany, in Ukraine, in uniform, that is a good political statement. But they are there on a diplomatic mission, whilst a soldier normally would never be stipulated a diplomatic passport unless it's part of some sort of diplomatic delegation. That would almost never happen.
Yeah, like Lloyd Austin has been to Ukraine, right? He's technically in our military hierarchy, right?
But he wasn't there in uniform, and it's I think it's only happened with UK, Germany, and France, unless I'm completely mistaken here. But
yeah, don't know. But I couldn't find any details about it. If we have any French viewers or listeners who are able to dig up any more about what the delegation said they were going to do in Ukraine, that'd be cool. Anyway.
Yeah, I just want to note, like, for instance, our chief of defense visited Ukraine, I think at least 2 times since the full-scale invasion started, and he did it in civilian clothing. I'm not happy about that, but I'm happy that he went there at least. So,
yep.
Okay, are we done with Germany?
I don't know. You tell me if there were more questions for me.
can we pick Gao's mind anymore about Germany?
You can. I'm allowing. Like when there are more questions for me, just throw them at me.
Cool. You're a very sporty and stand-up guy. I see one more question, but it's not for you.
Fuck.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, good.
Daniele, welcome, by the way.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Good.
loud and clear. Kellen asks, I read that Russia is now using AI in shades to target, I guess, Shaheds, to target Ukrainian energy. Any more news on Russian AI developments or fiber optic drones? I'm so sorry that I had to ask you that last question.
Oh, no worries. So first of all, we should divide the topics in two, because of course the optical driven drones are of course nothing to do with AI at all. And for this last area of development, we have seen a lot of back and forth on both sides. Of course, there is a news, especially in a highly EW contested area like Kursk, a very large use of fiber optic drones. And this is, of course, something that everyone is trying to keep an eye on that. As we saw also, Madiar, Commander Madiar, started to use a very large quadcopter and octocopter with optical fiber.
It was a hexacopter.
Hexacopter. Okay, yeah, sorry. And they are very good platform, honestly, because of course because of the additional thrust, they have much more control authority, so they can essentially nearly do similar things to a classical drone. But for what regards the smaller one, I don't think that the threshold is still there. I really think that, as we said many times, these are going to be platform very niche, used in very specific condition, and honestly they can be enabler in the sense that you can do precision strike on, for example, EW system or particular system that are impeding you to use your drones, and then go with the drones, the normal ones. And of course this depends on how and who first will master high frequency, the high frequency domain, because I think this will be much, and the digital one as well. So there are a lot of development. You can also speak for that.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the reason why I'm saying so sorry is that me and Daniele are constantly very disappointed in the public discourse about optical fiber use with drones, because we both agree that at least I think I agree with Daniele about this, that the hype is not necessarily in proportion with what is the reality with this weapon on the ground. I'm happy if Ukraine adds this as a capability, but I don't think that it's going to be nowhere near as impactful as other developments in small copter drones in warfare, basically.
Yeah, and we have seen what happened when you manage to master very well communication with drones, in particular for what happened to the ISR and Lancet campaign done by the Ukrainian army against the Russian army. So we have seen the drop in Lancet, and also in some aspect they have been also one of the reasons why we see less gliding bomb as well, because without ISR drone, of course, you essentially blind or partially blind the forward observer, and so you make essentially more difficult for them to strike with this type of weapon. which has been very successful, especially in some areas like, yeah, essentially everywhere. Where the Russian have used FAB, they have been very successful, unfortunately. So removing this capability is something significant. And this essentially, just to close this, I mean, at the moment we don't have enough data. The data that we are gathering, and even by looking at the video that are posted, they are just a fraction of a fraction. Is nearly nothing compared to the thousand and thousand of video that we see daily on normal FPV. So they are even less than the ISR drone. So I really don't think they are like something that tip the 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 scale on one side or the other. And
But like
yeah.
I just want to emphasize that from what we see of the Vandal drone, which is the Russian main
Yeah.
fiber optic drone platform, it is very, very bad at damaging Ukrainian equipment, and almost like something like 90% of what we see of successful hits are stationary targets, mostly
Abandoned target.
abandoned vehicles in areas that Ukraine already abandoned, and that's probably partially because of the range of the drone. It's not going to reach to the back of the lines of Ukraine. Whether with the normal FPV drones, we see strikes from both sides happening kilometers on the other side of the front lines, and
Yep.
and that is a severe problem in this capability. And the range is not just the cable length, but it's also the battery capacity, which is very highly impacted by the weight of the
Not
extra weight that it carries.
not only the weight. If you look at the shape of the drone, if you look at the front section, you increase substantially the drag of the drone. So in fact, the Russian now, what they are doing, they are trying to 3D print themselves the coil in order to then attach something that is more aerodynamic, but you cannot change the fact that you have the battery on the top, this big cylinder, and then on the bottom, and then you have to place somewhere your warhead. So essentially, you are increasing the area of contact with the cross-section area of the vehicle. Is going to drain more the battery. That's for sure. And another point that I want to make, today, I think today, Andrew posted a video about two M113, Ukrainian M113, which unfortunately both ended up in the same crater made by an artillery shell, probably, and they got stuck essentially. And they were abandoned and then hit with a Vandal drone. Well, you can see the limit of the warhead that they transport, because even the M113, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is an aluminum chassis, didn't take a big beating. They needed two drones to produce some kind of damage. And this was an immobilized vehicle without any crew, without anyone shooting, without any type of response. So you can imagine what happened in real combat, where the troops are trained to contrast this type of threat, which of course now is new, so is a bit difficult to transfer to the understanding on how to react, how to operate when this threat is there. So in addition, the fact that you have also this enormous coil underneath increase a lot the area where you can shoot. So even with a shotgun or a rifle, you can produce a significant damage, because you can hit the coil and then essentially make the connection going off, so you lose control of the drone. Now this could end up anyway in a proper strike, so that's happened sometime even with FPV, because the velocity is so high that the drone, even if it lost the control, just goes straight. But still, is not that great and completely innovative weapon. It's just a patch solution to a problem, EW.
Yeah. And I just want to emphasize that I do absolutely think that it's a threat that Ukraine didn't know how to handle at all when a couple of weeks into the Kursk invasion, the Russians fielded this capability. And the way that they reacted to it probably changed the way they operate. And that's unfortunate for Ukraine. But I don't think it is so impactful as some media outlets, specifically one English language Ukrainian media outlet, is trying to make it into. And I think the whole debate around this issue is very unfortunate because possibly we will have private individuals or manufacturers spending too much time on a capability which I don't think is necessarily where they should put their investment.
Yeah,
But I think Ukraine knows this. Like most Ukrainian manufacturers and units knows that the limitations of this drone capability is quite significant, and that's why we saw Magyar testing a hexacopter drone, and they know that the cost of this is 4 or 5 times more of a normal FPV drone, so they're gonna immediately limit the use of it just because of the
Yeah.
cost.
But you see in these type of approach, when someone who have experience with drones implement this technology, because the introduction of the fiber optic gives you something, but it removes a lot of other aspects. And when you apply this on a small copter, in particular an FPV, you essentially completely destroy the essence of the FPV drone, which is a crazy speed in nearly unpredictable trajectory. So all the strength of the FPV, boom, goes away. Instead, if you do this on a large drone, like an hexacopter, which is mainly used for bombardment, you add a capability to something that was already not that fast. You may don't lose anything because you're already going slow. You gain the capability of operating in EW endangered areas, and you may have less payload, but much more than nothing, because if there is an EW and you want to leave ordnance on your enemy, you may desire to say, okay, I have to live with the fact that the fiber optic has a weight, but I have a very powerful engine, so the trade-off is nearly there. Instead, doing a small drone doesn't pay off as good as unless is like a last resort. And for, in my opinion, the Russians were very capable in fielding this fast because they had the problem that they couldn't contract the EW, the massive use of EW system put in place during the Kursk, the very first part of the Kursk incursion. You remember, I documented these not too much in details, but was evident that the Ukrainian army did a very good job in ensuring that most of the vehicles that were operating in Kursk were covered by EW. And so this is why we saw this happening there, because Kursk was very important. The Russians were in a very bad position, and the Ukrainians were using EW in a very good way. So they have to come out with some kind of solution. And I think this close for this topic. We can move
Yes,
on.
but it bridges to the other part of the question where actually it is one of the reasons why they probably do it. The Russians are reportedly using what I call automatic targeting or automatic terminal guidance in order to hit targets with their Shahed drones. And I don't think there is any confirmation about this.
Yeah,
But-
there is
but-
no confirmation, only speculation. And I want to say this because it's very important that we keep the technical terms correct. Sorry if I want to do this, but there are AI development and sometimes is confused with also swarm use of drones. So these are two things that could be connected, but could be, and most likely are completely dissociated. So you don't need AI to do swarm. You need communication. You need drones that knows where the other drones are, and these drones need to be able to communicate each other, so to transfer information, some kind of very basic information that allows them, following a program, so you don't need AI, to take decision and adjust a path because they know where they are, depending on inertia, inertia monitoring, or depending on GPS, image detection, and so on. So in that way, they can operate together. For example, they know that a couple of drones have been destroyed, so they may they change their approach to a target in order to be more successful, depending on what the engineer have planned inside their program. And this is completely possible without AI. It's something that can be done. It's difficult, but it can be done. Now, in order to use AI, you need a powerful or at least decent card that allows you to run AI code, which is not a normal CPU. We are talking about, normally you use GPU, graphics card, which are on purpose made to work on a platform and run a very basic AI program. But the fact that they are basic doesn't mean that they are very light. So the Russians are using a lot of civilian grade, civilian market graphics card, and like there was even NVIDIA card. So the level of complexity of what they have achieved depends on what type of card they have in. At the moment, there was no evidence of this. We will see in the future, but they already have been, this card have been already found in other platforms, even Erlend, because they can be used for machine learning and for for image processing, for automated image processing.
Yeah, real quick, this recent report, it came from The Guardian, and it says, efforts are, I'm quoting here, efforts are also underway, Ukrainian military sources said, so unnamed Ukrainian military sources said, to implement artificial intelligence to try to create, quote, drone swarms, whereby Shaheds communicate and coordinate attacks to overwhelm air defense. So as Daniela said, I think artificial intelligence there is probably a weird word to use. They're probably talking about what's called a mesh network, as Daniela was pointing out. Like, you're basically talking about making each one of these like a little modem, like a little wireless like modem. And then, as he said, if one of them notices that the ones that went a certain direction go down, it's got like 6 program flight paths, and it says, you know, well, don't use the one where they all went down, use this one, right? And it changes or whatever. So we could maybe call that artificial intelligence, but that seems like a big stretch. And then the other stuff that was being talked about before, like image recognition, I mean, you know, that probably is, it's machine learning to a degree, but like that's been around for a long time, being able to recognize terrain and objects, like before what we would consider like modern, like you know, the US has been putting that in missiles since the 70s or 80s or something. I couldn't name a specific time, but yeah, like it's not a totally new unknown technology to have some type of basic image target recognition in a machine. Anyway, so yeah, I think that specific quote, though, because they're saying that it's involving drone swarms, I think they're talking about a mesh network there, which, you know, I don't think we have any evidence yet of Shaheds using mesh networks, but it wouldn't be like a completely crazy thing for the Russians to do. It would be, as Daniela said, I think kind of difficult, and it would definitely increase the cost and like design requirements. But you know, they could probably do that. It wouldn't, you know, it wouldn't make them like intelligent terminators or something.
The thing is, if you just say to the drone, make sure that whatever you encounter during the flight path, take the most likely route to a successful target, and you don't give it any more instructions, then we're talking AI. But that's almost I can't think that about a scenario where anyone would want to do that, because you want to control what targets the drone hits.
Yeah, I mean, in some essence, how you program, I mean, when you program a trajectory, you give him a target, and then what the computer and on board does is using like an optimization algorithm that try to minimize an error, and you want to keep that error as low as possible. Now, the fact is that when you fly, you have a series of input from your sensors, and you use these input to adjust your trajectory. Now, the more sensor you have, the more information you have, the more likely is that you can change that trajectory. And this doesn't mean that there is an AI behind. There is a good program that takes into account these things and is programmed in a way that reacts depending on what the sensor tells you. So, for example, if you send like a swarm of drones, and you know that there is like a first echelon that is completely destroyed along a certain path, and you are able to feed back this information, if that information comes back, then I could say, okay, maybe I take another trajectory based on a series of information that I receive. And this can be done without AI, but it's more complicated because, of course, it requires more work from on a, let's say, programming point of view of the avenue, potential avenue of attack that you want to plan. And also remember, these computers are not our workstation. They have limited capacity in terms of computing, power, which is the most important, and RAM and space that where you can hold all this information. So most of the time, you have a limited amount of time that you can fly before hitting issues, hardware issues. So is I think, and the last point regarding the swarm again, in order to do a swarm, you need the drone to exchange this information, because if they don't exchange information, it's just launching a lot of drones, and that's a swarm. Yeah, that's a swarm, but it's not an intelligent one. It's not one that takes advantage of the number in a more elegant way, because you can saturate the air defense system by launching hundreds and hundreds of drones, or you can launch hundreds that communicate each other, and, for example, try to saturate a battery that is firing a lot in order to maybe, for example, saturating or allowing a battery to completely finish an entire set of missile and then hit it with an Iskander, for example, because it cannot defend itself at that point. So all these things are possible when you can feedback this information. I don't know how much the Russians are able to deploy these at this level at the moment. If they work, they can definitely do that, but they need component and processing power, especially if they want to do this on AI level. And this is not easy.
But one question. Can a NVIDIA Jetson mini computer potentially perform the tasks that you described earlier?
You don't need that. You need the smaller one, like the Xelix.
A Raspberry Pi with a hat.
Yeah, but still, like, my question, could it potentially do it?
No, it can't, because
really?
because the power that you need is too much. So that type of computer you cannot put just as it is on a drone, because you need enough power to keep it up. So you need a dedicated card, which potentially can do that, but you need to buy that. And you have to go to the pesky West to buy it, because China do not have that. So that's the point. If we are very good in sanctioning this item, they will not have them, and so they cannot deploy AI as they want. They still can, because there are a lot of product like the one that you mentioned, which can still work somehow. So you can have some sort of a dedicated AI computing processor on your drone, but it's not.
But
Yeah.
But the thing is that seriously, a Shahed can't be fitted with a battery that can supply 10 watts for
I don't
a
think
few
it's 10
hours.
watts.
It's 10 watts, the Jetson Nano.
Yeah, but I'm not sure.
Maximum draw is 10 watts.
Yeah, if
10
that's the
watts
case,
is
probably.
doable, but I don't know the performance of Jetson.
But I think the thing is, Erlend, like it could probably see a power plant real good and be like, "That's a power plant." But like, you know, there was technology to do that before. That's like, you know, I'm not saying it's not a good thing to have on
Yeah, he
a
can do.
weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I'm just saying, like, it's
my
not
question
some
is,
new futuristic technology, right? Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, but my question is, can it do it? If the answer is yes, and those are the kind of mini computers you find in the Russian drone, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's an AI drone, even if the computer is called something with AI, because the Jetson Nano isn't necessarily AI in its application. It's just it has a possibility to do more calculations than a norm.
It's developed to do mostly AI, we can say that. So technically speaking, it's developed to do that very well. And this is why you get that low voltage. I was thinking not on the card, but I was thinking on the mini computer, which is much more powerful. So
it's the mini computer. The Jetson Nano mini computer is the one I'm talking about.
I think the answer, Erlend, is you can do it with that, but you can do it cheaper other ways. So why would you do it that way, right? I think that's the answer, but maybe I'm wrong.
Because it's available and fairly small. That's kind of,
yeah, it's very light. I mean,
but it's expensive, right? Compared to just doing it a traditional way with photographic
$250,
recognition.
something like that.
it's like $200-300.
Right. Like there's cheaper ways to do it than $300.
Sure.
I mean, if you go on proper rugged military spec stuff, no, of course. I don't think an open source card can do that with the same level of confidence of even the previous version of this, which has been found on Erlend. And this is the point where I was thinking, one of the most effective way to avoid these is to sanction this type of product and avoid Russia to at least make them harder to obtain these, because China is not going to be able to provide this product, at least with this level of innovation.
Yeah, I agree. Like I'll say this. I'm certainly no expert. My only information about this comes from like I didn't want to get a Ring doorbell because I was like, that seems too invasive to my privacy. So I was like, how difficult is it to like set up a camera and be like, that's a package, that's a person, that's a dog? And the answer is like not that difficult. It's like $100, maybe a little more. And you know, it involves like a Raspberry Pi, and then there's like a module you put on it that gives it like AI. You can do it without the module, but it's like a lot more. It takes more power, and it's like not as accurate. But you know, like I don't know, you can definitely do it with like consumer grade technology these days. So that much is very true. Like what you guys are saying, it just seems to me like a $300 device for that application seems like overkill. But maybe I'm wrong.
No, just to make it clear, now I was reading. So the Jetson Nano is a developer. Is the idea is for developers. So essentially, you want to develop the code, so you want to test it also on an hardware. So you want a chip, something cheap to run a code. You don't care too much about latency or other things. In fact, it's less than a teraflop. So it's a 472 gigaflops. So it's half of the speed that normally you have on a decent card. So this is probably going to run the code, but it's not going to be as fast as a proper card. Now, what this mean? This means that you can still run the code, but you need to run less information, so you become less efficient. So once again, it's all depend on what you want to do, because if your code is very simple, you don't have much information, you don't have many call, the AI will be essentially not constantly running. So you know what I mean. The load is not going to be that significant. You can do with this, or you can barely do with this, but it's fine. It's cheap, it's available. Let's do it. If you start to have much better performances, much better card, then it's become a problem, because then, of course, you may need the $1,000, $2,000 card for each drone, but it becomes much more powerful as well, because this is the starting price for a graphics accelerated AI card.
But yeah, my point is really like you can utilize these mini computers for this kind of targeting systems, and even if the what the Ukrainians find inside a drone is a Jetson card, which is mainly made for AI applications, it doesn't necessarily mean that the drone is AI.
Okay, just to give you a figure, one military grade, so this is something that is already developed and fielded in US, has 5.3 teraflops. So it's 0.5 Ds, the card that we are talking about. So it's definitely not, one of the best. But as you said, the fact that you find this doesn't mean that has an AI code, or doesn't mean that is doing something specific for targeting. It may be using for processing images for other reasons.
So AI Girl says, to be picky, you don't really need a GPU to use an AI model, aka inference AI. That works quite well with a CPU. You much more need the GPU for training the model, but that's not needed on a drone. And I guess that makes a lot of sense when we have heard about Ukraine finding Jetson chips in some of these decoy drones, for instance, that are most likely there to train and learn more about Ukrainian air defenses, and also also be an extra target for Ukrainian air defenses.
But I think
Well-
now. Oh, go ahead, Daniel.
No, just a point. That's true, but it's also true that now, first of all, if you want to train, just to reply to you, Erlend, if you want to train an AI model, you need somehow to get back the data. And if your drone doesn't go back because it's destroyed, it's a bit pointless. And the other point is that it's true, it's used for training, because they can have they don't have as high computational power as a CPU, but they can do things they can use all those code that a GPU have in order to parallelize the code, in order to run it in a kind of multi-thread way. So in the end, it's less powerful, but because you have more core running, it's in the end it's faster, and this is why NVIDIA is investing a lot also. And also there are cards that use GPU to run AI code, because it runs faster. You don't need that. You can run on a CPU, but for some particular platform, even which were not born when AI was a thing, you can add a module which has a mini computer inside, where you have this card, the CPU. So essentially, it's a self-contained computer which allows you to run this. It's just like a module. It's from there is a AIDS or rugged solution that sell this type of stuff to the US. and they sell these like computers which have also CPU and also the GPU module, which is specifically designed to run at the lowest watt as possible and run AI code on it.
Yeah. So the way that the Russians have been transferring data back has been through Ukrainian SIM card modems, as far as I understand.
Yeah, it just takes me back to like me and John going through the manufacturing process for the Shaheds. I talked about it a little bit today, the Alabuga economic zone, the Yelabuga plant. It's a bunch of like human trafficked Africans, a bunch of like basically unwilling. Intern is like a really generous term for what they're doing to those kids. And they're getting bombed like every few months by Ukrainian drones. So like imagine that's the scenario, right? You're like a college kid, you're like 18, you're just trying to get your like whatever like engineering degree so that you can like not be like have a toilet, be one of the few Russians who have a toilet. And they're like, in order to do that, you have to go work at this drone sweatshop. And you're like, fine. And the person next to you is like a human trafficked African migrant laborer, and you're getting bombed by Ukrainians. And they're like, hey, here, take these super valuable computer chips that are like more valuable than the gold we paid for these Shaheds in Russia. And like, oh, you don't know how to like solder them into the brains of these drones to make the drones smart? Like, what's wrong with you, 18-year-old kid? Like, I'm just saying, like, it's true that drones have all these capabilities, but at least when it comes to Shaheds, which I think we're talking about now, like the manufacturing process for these things like is so crude. It's crazy. It is like college kids painting fiberglass most of it, right? And then there's obviously some electronics involved, but nothing particularly sophisticated. So yeah, I don't know.
Anyways, I think the AI discussion was interesting because I have some issues with the whole term AI and how it's being used. It's
I think
the
we covered
media.
good semantic terms here, right? I think Daniela is totally right that swarm just means that the drones behave in some kind of way together. That, like, in other words, if one drone shot down, the other drone in some way reacts. Like, a swarm isn't just a bunch of drones together. They have to have that intelligent, like, communication to some degree. And then I think that's separate from AI, as he said. So I think we did a good job there. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm probably gonna get butchered by Constanza, but that's I see that she's typing. But thank you. Sorry about the long AI talk, but I know Jonathan.
Yeah, we should
really
get a
wanted
real expert one of these days.
yeah. Actually, we should invite Constanza to have a segment about this stuff. Jonathan, you wanted to talk about something that I know is very dear to your heart.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I just thought it was necessary to say to anyone who may have found themselves at a social occasion this festive season, you're not alone if you found that there are a great many people like us who hold our values, but few in number are those who will speak for them or speak about them. So if we take a look at what you can see in front of you now, the work of Yale's HRL, we can see an example of the kind of people who work for these values, the values we hold. Yet there are some in our communities which might be reticent to articulate these particular values, or they may simply be unaware of Ukraine's achievements this year. Indeed, there have been historic achievements which have been accomplished this year. Yale's HRL, for example, like you can see here, have performed work which has resulted in a number of Ukrainian captives identified within Russian territory. Children from Ukraine are placed with citizens of Russia in such a way that their guardianship turns into adoption. This is stated in the report here. And this is a quote itself from a state official in Moscow Oblast. So organizations such as Save Ukraine, Bring Back Kids UA have resulted in achievements, things like the 1037 children returned from deportation, returned from forced transfers or the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine. So I just thought it was important to say that for those like-minded, or to the contrary, we perhaps mix our sadness regarding some or many of the events of this war with some trepidation at expressing it. Yet this war is being fought in the Ukrainian court, not in any other court. Ukrainians decide how to prosecute it and have proven judicially fair in their targeting of their and our shared enemy. I was saying to a friend of ours, ATP Geopolitics, this week, ours is an activism centered around the permanent preservation of innocent Ukrainian life from Russian tyranny. Russian tyranny. This tyranny that you can see here. The protection of the innocence of childhood and those who are vulnerable at any age. Because by envy's hand and murder's bloody axe, we know the Russians intend to pursue their current strategy of war crimes. And they will do so until the centers of their munitions manufacturing or wartime political power are vaporized by the hand of a Ukrainian Themis. The saving of as many lives as possible, no matter this war's length, is shared by many more than you may realize. So, while you live, tell truth, shame the devil. Happy New Year, everybody. Slava Ukraini.
Heroim Slava. Someone wants to say anything more about this?
That's a right conversation ender. Apologies.
It's
had to get it off my chest.
No. It's super important, and thank you for spending your time looking at this and doing your own investigations. It is unfortunately very little that I've read about potential prosecution and investigations going on performed by Western countries into the system of deportation and adopting away Ukrainian children. That's something I think is very sad, and in general, Russian war crimes seems to mainly be investigated by Ukraine, while the norm has been that countries independently have been spending their investigation capacity and also their tribunal capacity towards prosecuting war crimes independently of international courts and also the country that is the victim. So I hope that that's something that is going to happen and is happening, but we don't know about it yet. But yeah, thank you.
I'd agree, Erlend, and I think something we've seen recently from perhaps since the outset of this full-scale invasion is that Ukraine's Western allies are quite comfortable with Ukraine's targeting of its enemies. It sees nothing wrong in its targeting. There is political rhetoric, which is more extreme. If we seek, we can find it. But I think in terms of actions, Ukraine's allies are, yes, we're comfortable with the way that Ukraine is prosecuting this war, and we'd like to think that we would do so ourselves if we were in their situation. So yeah, just wanted to say thanks for everyone's continued support here at Tochnyi and the amazing work that people in this group do and the incredible support that we receive. Slava Ukraini.
Heroim Slava.
Дякую. Yeah, there was a question that was directed towards Gao that we forgot, or we didn't forget it, but it came in the middle of the AI rant, I think. So
We should timestamp all the rants in the
Yeah,
video.
I just want to point out I didn't forget. You forget.
no, I didn't forget it either. I
Nah,
actually
you
knew
say
about
it.
it.
You did.
No.
100%. You said Jonathan is fine to talk.
Yeah,
Wasn't Q&A anymore.
he was waiting for so long.
The question also. the drone talk was so long. I mean,
Yeah.
it's good, but yeah. No, everything is fine. So, at Go, have you heard any timelines about the Rheinmetall factories in Ukraine? So, first of all, most of these factories are still just planned. No, it's hard to forget because there are always so many statements about them. Maybe that's the French way of doing it, but a lot of this is only plans, not realized yet. The only thing which is already realized is the maintenance hub. It's already open since, I believe, February and officially open since a couple of months ago. The
By the way, when you say plans, do you mean that they are planned to be built in a specific timeline, or
no, let's talk about doing, sorry for interrupting. No, they're just Pappberger, the CEO of Rheinmetall, talks about doing things. He would like to produce air defense systems in Ukraine. He would like to produce Fuchs APCs, Lynx IVs, and Panther MBTs in Ukraine. He wants to open a 155 factory, which is actually the letter of intent is already signed since a couple of months ago. So this is actually going to take place 100%. They're currently still searching for a location, as far as I know. But there's no timeline. Definitely after 2026, 100%. I don't think they will. Maybe in 2026, who knows? But not earlier. And yeah, so the only factory which is open is maintenance hub. The 155 factory, there's a letter of intent signed, but they're currently still searching for a place to do it. Pappberger also talks a lot about building links in Ukraine, so producing vehicles. He also talks about it like it's actually happening. The thing is, I haven't heard anything about financing, and the Lynx is, please correct me, the most expensive IFV currently in existence. So, I mean, they're donating, I believe, or Germany financed 10. We don't know yet, but Ukraine will get 10 of them starting this month, actually, according to Pappberger's statement. But apart from that, there's nothing known about financing a broader amount of IFVs for Ukraine, and I don't think they will produce a whole factory, a whole production line for the most modern IFV and probably the most expensive IFV in the world without actual financing. So, in my opinion, as of right now, I might be wrong. I don't have any details. It's still just planned, even though he says they will do it. So that's the answer to your questions. And one addition maybe is there are currently a couple of 155 factories under planning and construction where I have timelines. And that's first the 155 factory, which is currently being built in Unterlüß since, if I recall correctly, February 2024. And they said they need about a year to 1.5 years. So it's going to open in Q2 2025, the 155 factory, and then it, of course, doesn't start directly with 100% capabilities. It's going to scale over 3 years. So I believe it's starting with like 50,000 155 shells capacity, and after 3 years, I believe we're at 200,000 155 shells. And there's also currently under planning a 155 factory in Lithuania. The letter of intent and the signing of a framework contract was actually done in, if I recall correctly, at the end of November. And this one is to open in mid 2026. So these are the yeah, all the timelines I have for the factory still in construction right now. I hope that was a satisfying answer.
I mean, he said, perfect. Thank you. So I think yes.
Yeah, what else, right? What else?
So how can we drag out time until Daniela is back, Joseph?
I know one solution.
Oh, easy. Oh, he
Since Daniele, no, fuck, he's not here, right?
No, like,
Ah.
but we have some. I have
Hey,
some
Erlend.
questions for
Hey,
Daniela.
Erlend.
Yeah.
What's going on with the website these days? We have anything new to share with the good people?
No.
Erlend, just say yes.
Yes, there is a new
Hey.
website coming. Apparently,
Whoa,
I heard
that's incredible. Tell me more.
rumors that there's a new website, and I know that there is at least one thing being worked on about Russian losses in a specific area, but I don't think I can say yet where. But it's kind of a Ukraine related topic, but not
Is it
necessarily.
Moscow?
No.
St. Petersburg?
No, it's Russian losses. It's not in Russia and it's not in Ukraine, but it's interesting and affects Ukraine long term.
Is it Berlin?
Well,
okay, yeah, I know.
No,
Well,
but
well,
there is an article potentially coming out,
Mm.
but it's not ready just yet, and it's being worked on the last month, let's say, and it's interesting, and it's about Russian losses of a lot of material. So that's the only thing I know that is in the pipeline right now. Also, one thing I would like to say about the website is that if you want to write about something and you're a listener and you have something that you think is within the scope of what Tochnyi is doing, then please let us know. Contact one of the people that you know in Tochnyi, or write directly to the Tochnyi account. And we will take a look at your idea, and we are happy to publish it if you think that it is in the scope of what we are normally publishing at Tochnyi. So now the questions to Daniela are just raining in, and he told me he is back. he's away from keyboard and coming back.
Just one thing. I mean, when we are already like advertising articles and that kind of stuff, I just want to point out that although I published an article like a day ago or 2 days ago, I'm currently working on another one which I intend to publish before the end of the year. It's about the German IID initiative, so the Immediate Action on Air Defense initiative. We started in around April, and it's going to be a very extensive and long article about all the contributions to it, which country is delivering which air defense equipment as part of the initiative, and who's financing what. So, for example, Canada financed IRIS-T missiles, right? And thanks for, of course, also showing my website. Just wanted to point that out, to get some things done. Yeah, that's my latest article. Because very, very sad, apparently one of the victims of the big diplomacy change in the world from Ukrainian ambassadors is that the Ukrainian ambassador to Germany is actually going to be replaced, which, to be honest, here in Germany, most of the people don't understand, because he's, in my opinion, perfect for the job. And I really like him very much. And I dedicated a small commentary in German to him. Normally, I'm just writing in English because there are many people writing in German, and there's a lot of German audience. But I'm trying to create a bridge between German speaking and English speaking in terms of what Germany is doing with my project. So I'm mostly just writing in English, and there was a small exception that I'm writing like a farewell article basically for the ambassador, which is currently being shown. Yeah, it's really like, I don't know, man. He did so many good things for Ukraine. He really like eased out the relationship between Germany and Ukraine, and everything improved since he took office. It's really hard to understand why he's going. And the funny thing is, I don't want to bitch about the new ambassador. Don't take this the wrong way. But the funny thing is, the one who will be replacing him is the current ambassador in Israel. And when you think about the fact that Israel is blocking most of the military assistance to Ukraine and doesn't provide any assistance at all, it's kind of crazy that he gets to get the job done in Germany. Yeah, and apparently, and I don't understand why, Zelensky thinks, at least that's reported in Ukrainian media, Zelensky thinks that the new ambassador is going to be, or is a German, a guy who knows Germany and all that kind of stuff, despite the fact that he never worked in or with Germany. I don't know where you get that impression from. Yeah, so, but I hear Daniel is back, so let's move over to him.
I don't know if Daniel is back, but
Yeah, he wrote it in.
Yeah, I'm back.
Yeah.
yeah.
You need to
So,
pay attention.
Caffeinated.
Erlend.
so we were while Daniela was eating or something, we did a little talk about the website and about Gau's website, but there are some questions for you, and I think we're gonna start with Joseph. You had a question for him, right? Or for the GeoInt people in general?
Oh yeah, well, just I was talking about this week. There was a couple of air bases that the Russians are working on building fortifications on, Saki airfield specifically. But just like, I don't know. I was saying at some point in the future, it'd be good to look at some photos, like to see what they're up to, and like, I don't know, it'd be interesting to think about like what impact it would have.
So, you there, Daniela?
Yeah. So you're referring, right, to the air bases, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, specifically in Crimea, Saki airfield is the one I know the Russians are currently fortifying. It's the one that's also the one Ukraine hit like pretty early in the war. There was that big strike at Saki that was a little bit weird how like big it was.
Yeah, I remember that. I think that this is something that has been covered by. I was not looking at these. I have to be honest. I was not looking at these directly. At the moment. I'm working more on similar situation, but on ammo production and other facilities. And I can confirm that in general, since 2022, Russia didn't stay as some people believe, like doing nothing. They have been trying their best to improve the protection of their facilities, and these can be ammunition storage, ammunition production, propellant production facilities, and also air bases, especially after the successful strikes that Ukraine have done. And I know that there is a couple of bases that have been covered by OSINT. This is Belbek Air Base, I think is the one that you are referring to, and is the one that is near Sevastopol, right? And in general, what this article and other OSINT and analysts have been trying to track is the systematic construction of HAS, or essentially hardened shelter for aircraft. And there were some not hardened shelter based in bare metal. So essentially they were just cover for the airplane, but they were not by any means hardened. And able to sustain a warhead, even exploding close by. And for this reason, we have seen also the appearance at the beginning of essentially tires on some of the aircraft, because essentially there was nothing to protect these aircraft. So at the moment they are trying to build a series of these. They are in the process of finishing many of these. And of course, these represent a problem because these will be, in theory, and I say in theory because, already building something that complex, that fast, is a challenge. Doing this in Russia is even worse. So I don't know how this will end up, but for sure, in the worst case scenario, there will be an additional layer of protection for these aircraft, and of course, it will make these airfield more protected by drones. Of course, in the case of Sevastopol or anything close to the border, in reach of Storm Shadow, Atacams, or even better, Taurus when it will come, these hardener shelter should not be such a problem because, especially for Storm Shadow and Taurus, they have been designed to penetrate hardened concrete. So shouldn't be very much a problem. Of course, this depends on how many rockets and missiles Ukraine will have at the time, and how much air defense will be committed in the protection of this airfield. And lastly, these shelter cannot house all the aircraft Russia has. So they will probably protect the most valuable one, those that are probably loaded with missiles or ready to go, but many others will anyway stay in open field or not hardened shelter. So I think the biggest things that these should produce in the people is not the fact that, oh, this will be a problem for the war itself, but should, especially the increase in facilities, in ammunition production, in propellant production, whatever war material you have, they are working on expanding since 2022, so they never stopped. So what really these have to reason in our mind is that a ceasefire now is a suicide, because it's going to bring us to a larger war. This is not a country that is seeking peace or any type of negotiation. This is a country that is trying their best to don't collapse, take any deal as possible to stop the conflict so they can continue to rearm and then strike back. And so all this work, of course, are important on their side for this current war, but I think on a strategic point of view, reflect what they want to do in the future. They are not seeking peace by any means. And I know for many of you would looks like silly that I say these things because we already know that, but these are proof. And I'm not only referring to these shelter being built, but many other that will come in the next few weeks and months are a proof that Russia is preparing for more war rather than peace. So this is my take, honest. I don't think these are going to be invulnerable. There will be means to destroy them. I will be harder, of course, but for myself, this is a signal, is a way for us to see in what they are planning to do. They are not planning to stop, and it's not only Ukraine.
Yeah, I think another strong signal I reported on last week, and then the economics panel talked about it. Russia didn't raise their interest rate, which was like widely expected, and like sort of like what that means broadly. I think obviously we don't know exactly what it means. We could be reading too much into it, but it's very evident that there's kind of a struggle between what we would call the oligarchs, right? The people in charge of like the big industrial enterprises in Russia, particularly in our case, the military ones, and the central bank. The central bank is run basically by technocrats, by basically Western trained technocrats who were taught how to run a normal economy, and they're doing their best to keep the Russian economy like limping along despite all the crazy stuff that's happening. And up until now, I would argue that, and I kind of heard this echoed in The Economist talking about it, it was one of the few relatively independent institutions in Russia. Like, they were allowed to make decisions and policy that would affect how the economy was working, and they weren't interfered with on a level that a lot of other institutions in Russia are by the Kremlin. But the fact that the interest rates didn't go up, even though the central bank was sending a very strong signal that they should go up, indicates that basically the oligarchs and the war economy are pretty much calling the shots now, that the central bank is no longer an independent institution, and the Russian economy is no longer being managed by anything close to a reasonable manager. It's now being run by the war people, right? So I think that is another strong signal, as you were saying, towards the idea that the Russians are not planning for a peace anytime soon. Otherwise, they would be considering, I think, more rational options than that.
I think we need to wait a little bit before we conclude that that's the path, though, because it could be a political move to kind of make some of these voices in Russia that have been screaming about not basically following the advice of the central bank, but do what the industry asks. One skipped interest rate increase is not necessarily a long-term policy. So until we see this happening on a more regular basis, I think it's still kind of a political thing, in my opinion. But I do agree that the institution, the central bank, has been dealt a very, very large blow.
Yeah, I agree. It's certainly the struggle isn't over by any means. But the fact that it seemed pretty clear that the central bank wanted to raise the rate and that it didn't happen, that means that they were able to directly intervene in their kind of realm, and that means they've kind of lost their autonomy in more of a symbolic sense. But you're right, in a practical sense, I'm sure the central bank still has a reasonable amount of authority, and they'll still be able to get their policies on some level through. And this isn't the end of the story, right? That's definitely true.
I mean, it's not. It happens also in most liberal democracies, right? That there were political voices saying that the central bank should do this, they should do that, blah blah blah. But one decision from that central bank in the favor of those voices might be it might be just a political move, but there's been so much talk about it that I feel that you're probably right. But personally, and it's just my opinion, I think we need more time to kind of conclude that the central bank has lost its independency completely.
Yeah, I agree. Like you, I'm very cautious when it comes to thinking about what's going on in the halls of the Kremlin, and I like to wait to see more definitive evidence. And you're right to say that this isn't enough to say that this struggle is over by any stretch of the imagination. But I think it's pretty clear the struggle exists, right? There's definitely a tension between the central bank and these military industrial leaders that have Putin's ear, that are saying, if you want to keep the economy going, you need to listen to us and not her. That's definitely confirmed through various sources, I would say. But whether it has shifted significantly or not, I would say isn't it's not clear yet.
Yeah, but we might look back, at this 2 months from now and say this was the shift. So
Right,
yeah.
Right.
Okay, I see that people are saying they're falling asleep, so I guess that probably means we should wrap up if no one has anything more they want to say there was one more question though, I think. One sec.
Was about
Yeah,
Daniel's map.
Yeah, there's more requests about your map, Daniela. Marino asks, will your map be open source at some point?
I suppose that Marino is referring to the map with all the targets. At some point, yes. At the moment, is not, because it's still like a creature growing. What I'm trying to do, I'm trying to keep up the one with the ammo depot and trying to keep it updated, because another point is, if I post the map, I put the map online and then I don't keep it updated, it's not going to be very helpful. So we need also to figure out a way to properly and efficiently update the map as soon as something happens. But yes, at some point will be not open source that you can download it, but you can look at it very closely. Directly on the website, yes.
Cool. Okay. Then I guess we should go to final thoughts. If anyone has any final thoughts, then I think it's end of the year. What's going to be your prospects for 2025? I guess that could be a final thought for the people in chat and in the panel.
It's going to be a momentous year. I think that's the only prediction I have. I don't know if I would say the whole thing's going to be decided, but it's gonna be definitely a pivotal point. I think that's it's a very vague and conservative and non-committal answer, but I think that's like all I can say about it. Right? There's going to be big things happening this year. I would say they probably are going to decide the fate of what's going to happen next, and I would lean towards some pretty definitive resolutions this year, but we'll see, I guess.
So Sleepy Gao, sorry, Erlend, you wanted something to say?
No, I just wanted to give the word to the next person. Yeah.
Okay. So Sleepy Gao is going to give a longer answer. Personally, from a German standpoint, 2025 for us in relation to Ukraine, of course, will be very important year, since we have elections in about 2 months, right? At the end of February, and which of course will dictate the way we deal with Ukraine over the next few years. Given which government we form, right? Which alliance we form. I hope for CDU and Greens, to be honest, that would be the best deal. Of course, afterwards it would be very important to increase military spending, right? Because in the draft budget right now, there's only 4 billion, which is of course way too less for a country like Germany, especially since everything of that is already spent before the year even started. And and not speaking about Ukraine, just about Germany, that's about it. Of course, Tower Distillery will finally be happening, which I hope will be a good moment for me to get some sleep and calm, and not 12 comments sent Taurus now under every of my posts. And that's my opinion on 2025.
It's my New Year's resolution to stop spamming your DMs and Twitter replies asking for Taurus.
No, you're not doing that. You're not that of a horrible person. Daniel is sometimes doing it, but only to nag me. It's not in bad faith.
Yeah, I never do that on my main account.
Thanks
about
that you're
Taurus?
not doing it on your main account.
No problem.
Yeah, I catch that.
I promise I don't even do it with any alt accounts, but maybe
Yeah.
that will change now. Daniele, what are your final thoughts for the year and for the new year?
My personal one is trying to go in Ukraine at some point. maybe with you, Erlend. I promise you this for so long, so it would be nice to go and meet some of the people. For Ukraine, I really hope that we can deliver what we promised in time and at scale, especially artillery ammunition, which has been for a long time a point of discussion. And also, I think another thing that I really would like to see is change a complete change of the the political talking point, because now, because we are in this transition from Biden administration to Trump, there is on the public debate this potential negotiation, and I really advocate. I'm doing all I can to explain to people why any type of negotiation is going to be wrong, is going to be detrimental for not only Ukraine, but mostly for Europe security and for the stability of the entire continent. Because, as I said before, when a country at war is going to expand a site that produces ICBM and IRBM, specifically in Perm, is not going to be good. So my prospect for the future is that this change in Germany, and maybe a change also in Italy or any other government, maybe Norway, will lead the Europeans to be more bold and audacious in deterring Russia and actually winning the war, not going for essentially postpone a bigger war in Europe in a few years.
Jonathan, what are your final thoughts for the year and New Year's resolutions?
New Year's resolutions to bring stability to those who feel instability, and kindness to those who feel unkindness. But I think this is in distinct comparison with what's going on in Russia. I think 2025 is going to test our patience, as 2024 did, obviously. As Ukraine's allies, I speak, not of the brave defenders of Ukraine. I think there's going to be a few activist groups in Russia, and if I could paraphrase Falstaff in Henry IV, Part 1, Act 2, Scene 4, some of these activist groups are going to be thinking, or anarchist groups, perhaps is more accurate, they're going to be thinking there lives not 3 good men unhanged in Russia, and one of them grows both old and weak.
Thank you.
Thought.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead with mine. This year has been quite a horrible year for Ukraine and for European security. I think we've seen some of the worst that we could possibly pull out of ourselves when it comes to the collectiveness and the unity that we should have given to Ukraine and with backing Ukraine. And I truly hope that some of the major political changes that are happening both in Europe and across the Atlantic is changing some minds that have been pretty locked into a very, very damaging mentality in Europe, which has hurt Ukrainians and all those people that have sacrificed their lives for defending Ukraine as well, because they were not given what was promised by us. And I feel personally a big failure from my country as well, which is the richest country in Europe, for not delivering what was needed when Ukraine asked for it. So my New Year's resolution is basically that this will change drastically. That Europe will stand more united, both politically but also materially in its support for Ukraine, and that this will actually be felt on the ground in Ukraine and not just empty promises. With big political change, there is also more opportunity, and when there is a desperate need, which there is right now and will be even more further into the next year, I truly hope and do believe as well that there are several people in key positions in Europe that will step up and will do what is needed. I just hope that there will be enough of them. I also want to say that in general, this last year and these last 2.5, almost 3 years, have also shown that there is great compassion in Europe and also across the Atlantic and from all over the world in support of Ukraine. And I've seen so many volunteers sacrificing their time, their money, their resources, and even their lives, helping Ukraine defend itself. And I hope that that spirit will continue, because Ukraine really needs it.
That was a very good answer.
And I hope that we give at least 10% of the sovereign national wealth fund to Ukraine.
Great answer.
Dreams. I saw that a very, very good question came in, but this question needs at least half an hour to be answered by Kathy. So Kathy, please write down this question and send it into the Tochnyi either Blue Sky account or Twitter account before the next stream, so that we are reminded that this is a very important topic that needs to be discussed. We probably need a lawyer to answer this question.
Oh,
The
now I'm
cable.
curious.
Nah, I'm not going to bring it up now. It's seriously, it's too long of a.
Yeah.
But I'm screenshotting the question and putting it in our backend channels, because it's a very, very good question, but it's seriously a question that deserves at least half an hour to be answered.
Yeah, we can do it next week. We got time. Okay, so I think we can probably wrap it up here, yeah?
Sounds good to me.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks to our panel for answering all the questions. Thanks, chat, for tuning in live. We always appreciate you guys coming in, giving us your questions, giving us your feedback. It really helps us understand what you guys are interested in and what you want to know more about. So thanks for coming and providing us with live information about all that. Thanks, of course, to the people who watch the broadcast after. There's quite a few of you guys, so we know that not everyone can make it at the broadcast time. So thanks for tuning in regardless. We really, every week we kind of talk about this behind the scenes. The YouTube algorithm is really like keeping us down, guys. They don't like what we're talking about. They don't like the words we use when Russians go to sleep in Ukraine. They don't like any of that stuff. So we really rely on like word of mouth for being able to get the broadcast out to people. I think we've done a great job, or I should say you guys have done a great job, like spreading the word. We're able to talk to people that we are really interested in. We get a lot of great interviews and guests, but we're really not being done any favors by YouTube. So it's basically, we want to thank you guys for basically fighting against the YouTube algorithm and promoting our work upstream. And also, we want to just implore you and beg you, please do promote our work. Talk about us on social media, all that stuff. It really helps us out. We're a nonprofit enterprise. We are all volunteers. We don't we only monetize the channel to get it promoted by YouTube. Like, if they're not making money off it, they don't show it to anybody. and then all the proceeds for the channel go to like keeping up. Like we have to pay for this streaming platform, for example. If we ever got any extra money, which isn't likely to happen anytime soon, we would donate it to a Ukrainian cause. So, and of course, show you guys like everything. So, anyways, point being, if you want to support us, there's no way to do that monetarily because we don't take any money. But you can support us by like spreading the word about our website and about our broadcast every week at 2100 Kyiv time, our YouTube channel, our Blue Sky account, our Twitter account. A lot of great authors and researchers and broadcasters at Tochnyi, and I can't praise their work enough. So I implore you guys to check it out, promote their work. I have so much respect for all the work that everyone here does. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thanks, everyone, and Slava Ukraini. See you next week, 2100 Kyiv time.
Героям слава.
Heroem Slava. Smed Faraham.
On behalf of the brave.